Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Nishant from Voice of Healthcare. Welcome, everyone, to the discussion on Make in India AI, the next frontier of healthcare. Today, we have gathered here to explore the intersection of artificial intelligence and healthcare and its potential outcomes on patient safety and our healthcare delivery. Our esteemed panelists are industry stalwarts who will be sharing their insights and experiences in this domain. So to start with, let me talk about what this topic is about. The topic we'll be touching here, as I said, is Make in India AI, the next frontier of healthcare. We'll be discussing how artificial intelligence has revolutionized the healthcare sector and the potential it holds for improving patient safety, enhancing diagnostics, and transforming the healthcare delivery in India. So to introduce our esteemed panelists, we have representatives from India's leading healthcare institutions. To start with, Ms. Mitali Biswas, Chief Information Officer at CK Birla. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. We have Dr. P.M. Uthappa, Group Medical Director at Narayana Health. Good evening, sir. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Excited to be here.
Thank you. We also are scheduled to host Dr. Sateesh Kailasam, who is Group Medical Director at Medicover Hospitals. He's running a little short, but we'll be expecting for him to join very soon. Lastly, I'd like to introduce co-founder at Dozee, Mr. Mudit. Please introduce yourself and tell us about the innovation and the contribution to the healthcare sector, and please address some specific changes.
So thanks a lot. Very excited to be here and amongst a very esteemed panel. So Dozee is a contactless remote patient monitoring and AI-based early warning system. What we do is we automate the typical, outside ICUs, the monitoring which is there is manual. We automate this entire procedure and make it continuous. Every minute patient is under care in every bed. And the impact that it creates, right? I want to talk about that. We recently, completed our clinical research that we just published. That every 100 Dozee beds which are there generate nearly about 210 life-saving alerts every year. We improve the efficiency of the nursing staff by nearly 15 to 20%, saving about 2.5 hours of nursing, which is a typical a crunch and shortages there of the nursing, so it creates a huge impact. And over it, an assurance to every patient that every patient is continuously under care, and that goes a long way, right? Even in terms of providing that kind of a peace of mind and patient safety as well. So that's what Dozee does.
Right, sir. Thank you for that lovely introduction. So I thank you all for joining us today. I thank all our audience who are here to engage and get educated on this insightful and a very enticing discussion on the exciting prospects of AI in healthcare. So let's begin. We have divided this conversation in 5 sections. I hope each one of you is ready to give your insights on each one of those sections. So section 1 is for Dr. Uthappa and Ms. Mitali. I'd like for you guys to share some innovative practices and solutions that you have adopted at your hospitals to enhance patient safety. And please explain how these innovations have positively impacted on the patient care. So let's just give the mic to Dr. Uthappa. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Nishant. Lovely to be here amongst the other panelists. I'm actually more excited to learn from them. Anyway, to answer your question, I'm the Group Medical Director of Narayana Group of Hospitals. So our healthcare organization is going through a massive transformation in terms of whether it's operational or whether it's finance or whether it's to do with infrastructure and specifically with digital. As our chairman, Dr. Devi Shetty says, we are more of a tech company than a healthcare company because he's quite passionate about technology and digital transformation. So 8 years ago, I think we decided to have our own software company. So we have our own electronic medical records. It's kind of built in-house, which fits the purpose. Uh, we have a fantastic health information system called Atma, on which we have based our mobile platform called Adi and a nursing platform called Nama and a few more other platforms. The reason I'm talking about this is our Atma is our, the baseline healthcare information systems on which we have a mobile platform called Adi. So every doctor has access to it. And the beauty of this is the doctors can see their patients, can access the patient records, can message other caregivers who are within the team, can look at blood results, can look at the diagnostics, can look at imaging, can write notes, can change medications, can discharge patients, all using the mobile. And obviously, can do the same thing on the desktop version, which is called Atma. So what this has done is it has really improved on the quality of care we give our patients. So they don't have to wait for, let's say, if you refer to a doctor, don't have wait for him to come and see the patient, go through the results and everything. So it all happens in real time. The patient safety is of utmost importance for us. We want to be one of the safest healthcare providers, and this has really helped us because we have access to information at the tip of our fingers. So this is one thing that has really transformed the way we work. Just to give an idea, every day 1.2 million messages go through this app. So that's fantastic. We noted that our nurses spend a lot of time in writing stuff like the care plans, transfer notes, handover notes, and all those things. And it takes up around 60 to 70% of the time, which is not very productive, but it's important. It's a regulatory important. It's a safety requirement. And how do you make this go away? So we have a nursing app called Nama, and they have really done a good job on this. They have looked at all the duplication that happens, and our pilot studies shows that the nurses spend less than 50% of the time in doing this mundane but important work. Now they have been released from this work and they have more time to look after our patients. And we are a very high volume center, especially the centers in Bangalore. For example, we do around 50 to 70 angiograms and angioplasty. And we realize that it takes a long time to do a report on this. So we have an app called Angio app. And by the time the patient is wheeled out of the cath lab, the report is ready. And that has really transformed the way we provide services to our patients. And it's been very quick. Our patients get discharged the same day. They don't have to wait for it and everything. Next thing is we have really started something called a clinical governance, which is a very robust system of looking at the hospital and clinical metrics. The beauty of the system is we have involved all the doctors, all the caregivers, all the stakeholders, and they look at the local metrics, their own department metrics, and we have built in redundancies so that they report to the department head then reports to the clinical director of the hospital, who then reports to me. So we have built in three layers of safety so that we capture all the quality and the safety metrics. So this has really pushed us to the next level in terms of patient quality. My favorite, and we have lots of other examples. My favorite has to be something not digital, something what we call as patient safety rounds. Now, if you can imagine a ward with lots of patients there, we have our supervising nurses who go to every patient every 2 hours. Um, just ask about a few things like about whether they need to go to the toilet, what we call spotty, whether they have pain, make sure that things are at arm's length, for example, the mobile phones or water or whatnot. Make sure the lines are intact and explain to them about false risk and the importance of calling the nurse if they have to go anyway. And what this has done is it has really reduced the number of falls our patients are having, reduced the number of pressure ulcers, reduced venous thrombophlebitis, reduced D-lining, and it's really increased the patient satisfaction because now they know that every 2 hours somebody is coming to ask them about certain things. And the most important thing is it has reduced the call bells by 50%. So these are some of the things, but a lot to say, but I'll let the other speakers talk
No,
about.
I think right, sir. Very nicely said about the innovations that are improving the patient care. So, Ms. Mitali, on to you. We'd like to understand the different innovative practices and solutions that you've deployed at your hospital and what impact are they having on patient care and their safety. Please.
So I am more of a technology person, right? So I'll speak from that angle. So when you talk about patient safety, it's all about reducing the errors in the entire patient journey, right? Right from when he walks in to he's there under care. And the more and more you're able to reduce the human intervention there and try to automate or make it systemated, your chances
Mhm.
of error goes down. I can't say it will be zero, but then your chances of error goes down, and you can provide better patient safety. So our target is to move more and more towards a paperless kind of hospital, which is still a dream, I would say. And technology is not the barrier. The barrier is change management.
Right.
As I was telling. So that's a difficult challenge, especially in the hospital or in the healthcare sector, mainly because everything is very urgent. You can't always go via the processes. You can't mandate that it has to be on the system to do this. So there are challenges, but it's a journey. We are going through it. So our target is to more and more digitize. Target is 100% of the processes. We are still in the journey, but as we are able to do that, your errors go down, and of course you are able to give a better care and hence a better patient safety. So right from the administrative tasks to whether the way you engage with the patient, the way you get the feedback, even simple things like the requests from the patient, all of that we are trying to capture through the system, right? Another thing is the quality management system. That also, the more you digitalize, the more you look at the KPIs, monitor them very closely, and then take immediate actions based on them, which is also related to patient safety, right? So I think those are the few things. So our aim, from a technology point of view, the way we are trying to impact patient safety is digitalize, more and more of the processes, try to get the human intervention down and make it more system aided.
Right. So I think those were two completely different but yet ultimately very relevant opinions from Dr. Uthappa and Ms. Mitali. So now moving on to the topic of today, the topic of conversation. Let's just shift our focus to the broader theme of AI in healthcare. So I'd like to hear the perspectives of the relevance of AI in healthcare from each one of you. Is it merely a hype? Is it actually a tangible reality? And I'd also like for you guys to give some classical examples, some practical examples that you feel how AI has already made a difference in healthcare. So this time we'll start with Ms. Mitali. On to you, please.
Right. So AI, is the latest buzzword in the healthcare industry, right? I would say, as an industry, we haven't yet matured to implement all of AI. It's still and in healthcare, as you can understand, unless the evidence is proved, especially in the clinical areas, the way AI is, which people foresee that is going to make an impact is mainly in the diagnosis, in the way you, give care to the patient in the clinical areas. And when I talk to some of our clinicians, their perspective is it's not yet proven. The evidence is not yet there because it's a huge population. As you can understand, AI works on data, right? The more data, the more accurate data you have, the better it works. And in healthcare, every what clinicians say is every individual, it's very different. You cannot generalize a diagnosis on an individual. So of course AI can help, but it can never be fully automated. It will always help. There will be a human oversight, there will be a human involvement. Of course it can reduce the time, it can make clinicians more efficient. That's on the clinical side of it, but I think we'll have to wait for some evidence and some really good data, because data quality is a big problem in healthcare. uh, terms of administrative task, I think there's a huge potential. As more and more apps come in, probably there it can make a huge, in terms of, because healthcare sector is also very dynamic, in the
Mhm.
sense, sometimes your hospitals are very overloaded. Sometimes, there are
Mhm.
probably the occupancy is not that high. It is seasonal. So based on that, how do you plan your manpower, for example, your administrative tasks, for example? All of that, it has a huge potential to impact, and it will give a lot of efficiency. So when I look at the efficiency front, probably we can start, and there's a lot of technology apps companies already working on it. It will
Mhm.
happen. But on the clinical side, I feel, my personal views, it has to wait for some time till the evidence is there and it can be implemented in a huge way.
Correct. So, any examples that on the top of your head where you feel that AI has made some difference in the healthcare industry as we know today?
See, we have not used any on the clinical side, to be exact, in our
I see.
hospitals. It's all POCs and all, which has been doing, for example, based on imaging, you try to predict something. So all
Mhm.
are, I would say, in a POC stage. We haven't really gone live in production and using it heavily, is what I would say. So
Okay.
that part, I think we'll have to wait and watch.
Right. A very crisp, a very insightful answer. Moving on the mic to Dr. Uthappa. Your views of AI in healthcare, the relevant perspectives. On to you, sir. Please.
So I kind of echo what Mitali mentioned. Just take you back to 1990s, when the computers started coming. It was the new LSD that people all were in trance. They were all in awe of what computers could do or can do. Same thing is happening with AI. All you hear now is AI this, AI that. ChatGPT can do this and do that and whatnot. So, for a hospital, a setup like ours, and for a clinician like me, we want to see AI as an end-to-end user. Okay, I
Mhm.
don't think there's any AI tech in healthcare which provide you that kind of end-to-end solution. Um, so there is development of AI in healthcare in little silos. A lot of people are working in their own little silos or little field, and most of them are non-medical people, obviously,
Hmm.
because they're all tech savvy, unlike us. So there are people doing screening stuff. There are people doing wearables and working on the wearables. Then there are people coming out with lots of different techs. But if you can imagine a healthcare sector like ours trying to incorporate all these different healthcare AI techs into our system, that becomes labor intensive. It's not going to serve the purpose and will be terribly expensive. So, as Mitali said, I don't think we're still that ready, but it has a place in our work, and especially in clinical work.
Hmm.
One of the things which we have utilized, which everybody is aware of, and there's a lot of who are what it is, robotics. Okay, we have robotics in quite a few of our hospitals, helping our clinicians do head and neck surgeries, or let's say abdominal surgeries, onco surgeries, knee surgeries, and whatnot. And that has really proven very beneficial because it's the minimally invasive, very small cuts. The blood loss is very low. The complication rates are very low. Very, very, very quickly you can mobilize your ALOS, that is average length of stay is very low. So patients go home very quickly. The downside is it's horrendously expensive. Whether you want to rent it or to lease it or to buy it, it's still very expensive. But that's offset with all the advantages it offers. So
Hmm.
the clinicians are still very, very much in control, but it uses the robotics and artificial intelligence and whatnot to be very precise. I think that's one of the examples I can give that we are using very effectively. The other example I can give, which we are using very effectively, is our analytics. Based on a BI platform, we have our own analytics called Meta Analytics. And because we are a very high volume center, we see in excess of 2.5 million people in our patients. And what this does is we provide complex tertiary and quaternary care. And for that, obviously, we need a very mature analytic systems to manage the entire revenue cycle, to
Mhm.
look at the clinical outcomes, risk source, medication efficiency, and operationals, SCM, and everything. And at this point in time, I was just telling you before the meeting, we just finished our operations committee review meeting, and we didn't have any Excel sheets, anything. So we just had to review the analytics and make data-driven decisions. So that there, it's really helped us in terms of looking at all those things. So those are two examples which we are using. I can actually say, but really I agree with what Mitali is saying. We're still not ready. There's still a lot of work to do. We still need more evidence. But the most important thing is here, you need to digitize your systems and piggyback your AI on that. I don't think you just need to bring in AI with you still using your paper-based case notes and everything. It's not going to
Right.
work.
Right. So I think AI, what you're trying to say is AI is backed by the digitalization that these institutions will incorporate. And I think what both of you guys have said is that apart from the clinical aspects of healthcare, majority of the areas have started utilizing a lot of machine learning and AI. Is
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. So especially our labs and everything is completely automated and whatnot. We are using the softwares to report our normal X-rays and so many other little things which I don't want to go in every little detail. But whether you like it or not, AI is there, but it's not providing at this point in time an end-to-end solution.
Okay. Mr. Mudit, on to you. Our audience would like to understand your opinions on AI in healthcare and maybe some examples that you feel have proven the change of AI in healthcare industry. Please, on to you.
Correct. So first up, I think I'll take what Dr. Uthappa and Ms. Mitali have shared, right? I think my perspective is AI as we see, right? AI is a tool at the end of it. What is important is we need to understand that how AI actually works maybe in background, right? To affect the care pathways of patients, to affect the pathways of a nurse and so on. AI will never be like, this is AI, or there will be a face which will be put to an AI, right? I don't think that is what is going to happen. And in that perspective, I think AI has already started impacting even healthcare industry as well, right? As an even if we are using a Word doc also, right? We know AI we are using unknowingly on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you an example of what we are doing at Dozee and how that leverages AI, right, to give a better clinical outcomes for hospitals who are using it, and also improve the administrative work as well. What Mitali ma'am was also speaking about. So
Please.
Dozee, as I mentioned, is a contactless remote patient monitoring system, right? So far as we know, patient monitoring you require leads, cuffs, or wires, electrodes, and so on. But how to do it placed under the mattress without even touching the person? Now, for that, we require a completely separate type of sensing. That's what Dozee has its own proprietary method. But over it, what we actually use is AI to segregate this raw vibration data that is coming out in every heartbeat, every respiration cycle, slightest of body movements, and all of that, right? Even when heart walls are moving, we are capturing that and then converting it into different biomarkers to monitor different aspect of the human health, like heart rate, respiration, in fact, even blood pressure without touching. Right now, that is where you can say AI is coming in, but the front end is at the end of it same. That everyone consumes heart rate, respiration, blood pressure. Dr. Uthappa mentioned fall alerts, right, being one of the very important part of patient safety. Right now, the beds which are on
Correct.
dosing, if the patient's more score is over a particular score and they have a fall alert switched on, if they step out of the bed without informing anyone, right, it generates a alert that this patient is out without any assistance, and that reduces the risk of fall. If the patient has not turned for more than 3 hours, it generates an alert for bed sores, that also Dr. Uthappa mentioned. Now, in all, what it is doing, and this is now being used by more than 400 hospitals across India, including few other marquee ones that we also know in this call, right? So like Bellevue Hospital, like in Kolkata, from Ramaya Hospital, Apollo Jayanagar, right? All of these hospitals are using this on a day-to-day basis, and every one of their beds. In fact, these hospitals are unique in that way that they have adopted AI to that level that every patient is under monitoring using this technology, so that if there is any kind of risk that is coming to any of their patient, They are generating this alert, taking a proactive action, and the effect is there that they have published that their code blue events are down by 88%, 90%, and so on. So that's the overall clinical impact of this. And same research we have also done in KGMU, right? So we took over 2 wards where all of the patients were under Dozee monitoring, and 2 wards which are not. And directly we compare the results of two in terms of efficiency of nurses and also in terms of patient outcomes. And the results were mind blowing, right? Now
Okay.
that is what the impact of AI can be. Right? But of course, as Dr. Uthappa and Mitali ma'am very correctly said, that we're still in very early stages. This requires more work. And what it also requires is that entire change management piece of it, because AI at the end of it is also not going to start affecting if it is there in a warehouse. Finally, it has to reach the patient. It has to go through this different barriers which are there in adoption of it. Go through that, implement that, and then is where it will actually touch a patient life. And I don't think it is very far. And the other examples of this, right, we are seeing in radiology. Example is that, right, now there are softwares which are able to consume a CT, right, which is typically takes, say, for a radiologist, it will take a 20-minute time. Softwares are able to assist the radiologist to do it in 1 minute. Now that is the impact over there, right? Because wherever you have bottlenecks, if using these tools like AI, we can make them more efficient. I think that is going to be the impact. And what Mitali ma'am said was absolutely correct. AI cannot be the front end, right? At least I won't like, if I am ill, a AI to ask me questions, give me out a strip of medication, take this. It always has to be human led. AI assisting a human. I think that is what is going to be the future. Uh, what I want to build, right? At least I would say I don't want an AI to ever operate me, right? Putting it out very clearly. So yeah.
Yeah, Mudit, I'm
Yes.
not going to take away what you mentioned. I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I'm aware of what Dozee does, fantastic stuff. Use is not available. Use kind of sleep on it, isn't it? If I remember. But what I was very particular about is we can't have in a paper-based hospital just one-off
Correct.
system like this. So because the moment that patient comes out of your ICU or HDU care, you're back with your paper notes, and it kind of doesn't integrate. Okay, it's
Correct.
good to have, but it's better to have if you're completely digitized and then piggyback AI on that.
Correct. No, sir. So I'll add a little bit on that as well. I think Dozee also has evolved quite a lot. So we have implemented those workflows. You are not just restricted in a bed now. So
Yeah.
patient right from home to OPD to ward to step down ICU. I think we have all throughout. Even when patient is walking around in lobby as well, Dozee is not just mattress under the mattress. That's our flagship product, but even we have gone beyond that as well, right? In fact, we recently did a tie-up as well. Now even we have all sorts of things as well. But you are right, finally it can't be done in silos. It has to be one thing, but it is also critical, sir, that we collaborate on such things to build it, because not one company suddenly cannot build this overnight. It's a journey, right, which I think healthcare practitioners, technologists, and administrators have to take together, and eventually we'll get there. And that is how a more efficient healthcare system is going to be built. What you are doing at Narayana is beautiful, right? Because that you have clubbed everything under one roof, and that is why that kind of system is being done. But not everyone has that kind of a leverage, right? And that is something which is very critical as well.
So you correctly mentioned something. Not everybody should come together. The challenge we have is uh, uh, people look at technology and scientific development in a linear fashion.
Correct.
Okay, you take 30 steps and you're 30 steps away. But science is progressing in an exponential manner.
Correct.
So all the clinicians think I do A, B, C, then I take AI or is take a step A, B, C, then I do digitization. It's not going to happen like that. So if you look at your computers and the size of the living room then 60 years ago, now it's in the pocket. So
Correct.
that's only 60 years. Okay, that's the exponential development. So as you mentioned, there are a lot of things happening in AI, but it's happening in silos. So what you mentioned was absolutely right. We need to all come together and see which part of healthcare tech fits where.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think what each one of you has kind of spotted on said is the collaboration that the different healthcare institutions, the different healthcare tech players, maybe silo tech players need to do. So with that, moving on to the next section of discussion, this. What we want to understand here is that implementing and implementation of AI in healthcare comes with its own set of challenges. And I'd like to kind of delve into the obstacles that each one of you has encountered or maybe anticipated in the implementation of AI solutions, and some barriers to adoption. I think this will be a very nice topic here. And how do you plan to overcome those barriers? So, to start with, Dr. Uthappa, on to you.
Um, Okay, as I mentioned, been saying right from the beginning, at this point in time, there's no AI in healthcare providing end-to-end solution. But the Dozee is coming out something similar to that. It's a, at the point is, as of now, it's a kind of a mix and match. So which one is the best one? What suits me? Or everyone is working in silos, as I mentioned. I think for you to take up AI in your healthcare system, you need to move away from paper-based case notes. Digitization is the key forward. Okay, but it's still in its infancy. Most of the government setups, clinics, nursing homes have some kind of some kind of digitization projects going on, but it's not fit for purpose. It's very expensive to have your own electronic medical records or your own hospital information system. So how do you get everybody to get this? I think the government of India is trying to get in the ABDM, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, trying to integrate all the private health centers and tertiary care centers and pharmacies and care providers and whatnot. And mainly they're focusing on wellness. That would be a good thing if they could do that. So even the people or the hospitals in remote areas and urban areas can be integrated. And that's where when you have AI, it will help them. But getting digitization or getting your hospital to go paperless is a humongous task. And I'm saying this because we are going through the transformation now. It requires a lot. It's a big shift, and there's a lot of change management that's required. Um, the healthcare providers are reluctant to change because they're used to a particular way of working. It requires a lot of handholding, investment in the right tech, and as I again mentioned, once we have this thing, it's much easier to piggyback on this. Uh, we need to go back to the medical students, the pharmacy students, the nursing home students, the nursing students, and more, and about the teaching or education about digitization and AI should happen there, so that but the Gen Z start becoming doctors and other healthcare providers, they know what to expect. And there are a lot of sensitization about digitization of AI is required, and it's not happening. It's happening in a very hodgepodge manner. As I mentioned, we're all thinking very linearly, but things are happening exponentially. So if you don't digitize now, you'll be left behind, and your healthcare organization is going to go down very, very slowly. It's not going to happen overnight, but you'll be left behind.
Right. So I think what you're trying to say is the barrier to adoption for any kind of AI into healthcare primarily right now is the reluctancy to change to digitized formats in the hospitals. I
Exactly.
mean,
The change management is need to be there, educating them, sensitizing our healthcare staff, and they should understand this is going to be here. AI is here; it's not going to go away.
moving on to Ms. Mitali, your views on the implementation of AI in healthcare and the problems you've encountered, the barriers you feel that are there for adoption, and your how what your views on how to overcome these barriers, please.
So I'll agree with Dr. Uthappa, sorry, because change management is the biggest problem. Technology is the easiest part to solve, according to me. You'll find a solution. Even though it's complex, you will figure out a solution. But change management, especially on the clinician side, which is going to make a bigger impact. is very difficult. And actually, when you put themselves into their shoes, uh, they are also not wrong, because once that acceptance from the clinicians is difficult. One, as Dr. Uthappa was also saying, is it has to be integrated in the workflow. You cannot expect a doctor, especially in our country where one doctor is saying huge patients. The time of a doctor is very, very important. You can't expect him to do something on one system, the next something on the other system, and so it has to be integrated in the entire workflow. Unless we do that, we are not going to get acceptance. The second part is the medico legal aspect of it, which is still not clear, which when I talk to our clinicians, say if there's a wrong alert created by AI which impacts the human care, who is responsible? So those regulatory things, they are not clear. That's the reason also I find a lot of reluctancy from the doctors in terms of adoption. And they're right, because the medico legal laws are also very stringent, and something goes wrong, who takes the responsibility? Right? So those things are yet not clear in terms of a regulation, and the government has to do its part. Right? Then there is, on the technology side, there is challenges in terms of the data quality and the availability of the data. A
Hmm.
lot of systems are still fragmented. Data, they lie in silos. There are issues related to accuracy of it, completeness of it. And since the base of AI is data, unless we are able to solve these challenges, it's not going to give us the impact that we want to see. So that's also kind of a challenge. Then the cost and ROI part of it, it's still expensive. Healthcare industries are very cost sensitive. Thanks to at least COVID, the technology investments have increased, and we don't have to struggle for the budgets. But AI is still expensive, and we don't know the ROI. It's not yet proven that this much of investment is going to bring up so much of efficiency, because ultimately you have to convince your management that this is either impacting your efficiency or your revenue, one of
Correct.
these. Unless you're able to do that, you don't get your budget, and cannot go full flow on that. So that's still a challenge, and I think as an industry it still has to evolve or mature before we overcome all these challenges and start getting the real benefits of it.
Right. Very, very insightful answer. Moving on to Mr. Mudit, your views on the challenges of AI implementation, the barriers that you feel are there, and your views on how to overcome those. On to you, please.
So I want to answer it a little differently. I think Dr. Uthappa and Mitali ma'am have really summed up the barriers very well. Frankly, these are the barriers, right? Over there, which they correctly mentioned. I have been on both sides. Frankly, I've seen that what are the barriers, but I have actually also seen how we have overcome and actually implemented that as well. And a lot of times you talked about the change management piece of it, right? So I'll tell you, there are now hospitals where every bed is a Dozee bed, 350 of them Dozee beds, right? And it was a huge change. If it is changing right from a nurse taking a vital data manually to every minute the data is coming, an alert is coming, someone is responding to that, someone is seeing the alert remotely, and there is a full process made, escalation matrix made, protocols made. This has been the entire change managements which we have successfully implemented with few of the hospitals, and in India only. That is not in a very different world. So how did we do that, right? It took us immense amount of effort. It took us, so in a hospital which is roughly about 300 bedded, right? It is about your staff is nearly about 200, right? From cleaning staff to uh, everyone, right? Nurses, nursing superintendents, doctors, clinicians, and management, and so on. This has to go into, and it impacts everyone, right? So you literally have to onboard the entire value chain, what is in it for them, and then implement it one by one. Trainings, everything have to be done very meticulously to actually do it that way, right? So I think that is, the change management is hard, but I want to give a glimmer that it is possible as well. It's not impossible to do that. It just requires immense amount of energy, for sure, right? But it is all worth it at the end of it when it is done. Two other points that Mitali ma'am did put across. One was medico legal. right? Now this is something which is very crucial, because this is one of the very crucial barriers, and again, this can become a big mental block, right, especially for AI, right, to come in. uh, because see, at the end of it, as we very all of us agree that it can never be AI alone, it is always human, AI assisting human, right? Now what if AI gives an alert which is wrong or something, then human is there, right, to actually correct that, and that is the reason why it has been done like that, right? But what is the cost of not implementing it and actually missing out on a lot of people because we just were little inefficient, right? That is not something which comes under the discussion of it, right? That opportunity cost actually outweighs that risk which is there, which is over here. And secondly, generally speaking, medico legal, if we are basically do no harm policy, right, if that is being followed, and there are protocols to implement that as well, right? First, you don't do it overnight, right? You first implement it on a controlled group, take it through the clinical efficiency side of it, publish results, and then basically go for a full scale implementation. Of course, there are ways of doing that, right? But I think in my opinion, the risk that as Dr. Uthappa was saying, AI is there to stay, right? We have to accept it, right, as a industry as well. And how do we implement it should be the the discussion, right? Then just so barriers are there, but how it can be addressed, right, is also as crucial as well, I believe.
Mudit, I agree with you, especially with your news scoring and identifying patient at risk and all the alerts and everything. You can't put a price to safety. Okay, it's absolutely important. But getting that tech in is quite expensive. To have the
Correct.
your tech, I'm not
I
talking
agree.
about your tech in particular. Yes, any
Yeah,
tech,
I agree.
if you bet, as Mitali has mentioned, what's the ROI? And again, you
Correct.
can't put a price on the safety, patient safety.
I agree.
When you mentioned change management, I was specifically talking about clinicians,
Correct.
not about the admin people, not about the management, not about the nurses, not about the IT guys. The clinicians, we are a different breed. We are set in a certain things. We
Correct.
want to do certain things. We are trained and we develop certain things. So that change, touching the patient and doing their own physical examination, chasing those blood results and writing their own stuff. They love all those. We love doing all those things. And suddenly you say, okay, use tech for this, use tech for that. You use EMR for this. You use speech to text for this. Sorry, yeah, speech to text for this. And that's what I was talking about, change management. But otherwise, change management elsewhere is very easy to implement.
Correct. I'll actually, if Nishant, can I one
Obviously,
small, yeah.
obviously, please.
One place where I really want to put, right, is that the second part of it, right? COVID was one of the parts which Mitali ma'am also touched upon. It's very important. See, in COVID, when there was crisis, within 2 years, what all we did, right? We made vaccines in record times, right? We changed our entire protocols. We implemented digitization, what not, right? Because we had no choice. Frankly, the only reason why we were able to pull down the COVID curve was because human race was innovating faster than COVID was, right? We saw that how it was changing over time, but finally we caught up, right? And we were able to implement that, right? So are we able to do that? Answer is yes, but does it always take a crisis to come up for us to go in that beast mode? Is that not underlying other crises which are going on, right? Why not, as an exploding diabetes patient population, also not a crisis which is taken like this, or heart failure patients, or oncology patients which are increasing like that, right? At the end of it, we are capable of doing this. uh, just that sometimes we need that kind of a trigger. And I think COVID has taught us that we can do that.
Mudit, just before COVID, you couldn't do prescribe medications on a teleconsultation.
Exactly. Correct. No,
Right.
absolutely. So that's what, right? I'm not just talking about the entire chain of it. See
Yeah.
how fast regulators change that. But I think sometimes we have to take it up like that. It's important.
Yeah, I think very rightfully said by each one of you. So everyone with different points, but I think everyone what they're trying to say is what's the best we can do to improve patient safety and patient outcomes, health outcomes. So, yeah, moving on to the next question. Now, I'd like for you all to shed some light on the transformative potential that these indigenous made in India medical devices have, and the need of our to maximize this sector's potential to drive domestic manufacturing and obviously reduce the import dependence. Even the government of India has come up with a recently introduced National Medical Device Policy 2023, which is sufficient to practically reduce the India's import and dependence on medical devices. And how do you feel is all of this going to make India a global medical device manufacturing hub? And what are your views on that? So, Ms. Mitali, we'll start with you.
I am not an expert on this specific topic, but I can share my personal opinion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emphasis on this made in India, not only in healthcare, I think across all the sectors. Now, if I look just specifically at the medical devices that we use in healthcare, most of them, are foreign companies. We really don't have an Indian player in this sector. It's either a Philips or a Siemens so all of these are there. So other than, of course, if it can be done, very good, I think, because all this comes with a cost. These are really, really expensive machines which we are talking about. So if all of this can bring some cost advantage, which will in turn help, a lot of people accessing healthcare, because healthcare is also getting very expensive. Not all the people in our country specifically have access to it, and one of the reason is costs. One of a big reason is cost. Right. So if this can impact that, I think it's a very, very welcome move. Increasing the accessibility of everybody in India to cost-effective healthcare. Hopefully, it's a right step in that direction. That will have a huge, huge advantage. But other than just making it a device hub, the skill part also has to be considered parallelly, because there's also a lot of shortage of technicians who are operating on these machines and providing that care. That is also a huge shortage. So in parallel to this, probably the skills part also has to be something. If the government can take a step in that direction, probably that's going to have a huge potential across.
That is a very, very insightful answer, ma'am. Dr. Uthappa, your views on the same about the National Medical Device Policy, its implementation, and about India becoming the global medical device hub. Your views, please.
Nishant, I seem to be agreeing with Mitali. Again, I'm not an expert in this. But the last time I checked, India spent around 60,000 crores in importing medical devices. A year before that was 40,000 crores, I believe. So that around 80% of the medical devices we have in India are imported, mostly from China.
Okay.
I think the plan from the Indian government is to increase production of these medical devices in India by 15 to 20% or more than what we're doing. There's already a few players, like your Scanray, and the companies making dialysis machines. There's a SS Mantra produces these robots like the Da Vinci ones. There's a few players, but not many. Most of the manufacturing happens for cannulas and uh, catheters and whatnot. There's a huge need, huge potential to drive down the cost. I've been told it costs 20% more to buy these imported machines because of the tax and whatnot. A lot of potential, the right way to go forward, and as long as quality is good and the prices come down, I'm all for it. That's all I can say about this.
Right. Mudit, your views on the same topic, please.
I forgot to tell them, Dozee is here. Dozee also make in India product.
Thank you, Dr. Uthappa. Uh, but I think, Dr. Nishant, I feel we don't have any choice, frankly.
Mhm.
With a country of the size of India, right? And we are talking about Atmanirbharta and all of this, right? And if our one of the core sectors we are so dependent, our dependency on imports, as Dr. Uthappa was saying, is nearly about 80% on outside, right? It's not
Mm.
sustainable. We are sending now our one, of course you have to talk about it, we are sending our rockets to moon, and if we can't manufacture our own medical devices, I think we are doing injustice to it. There are one more component which I want to talk about it, right? One is, see, I don't think there is going to be any medical device after a while which is a plain medical device. It's not a sensor and display at the end of it. AI, as we were discussing, is going to be an important part of this. It might not come in front, but AI is going to be there, maybe in the back end, optimizing it, making it better, making the interfaces better, and so on.
Mhm.
AI requires data, as Mitali ma'am was also saying. Data is also very localized, right? So when you are saying something like this, right, if something is trained on data which is European, I don't think it is optimized for working in India, right? So when we are going to talk about next generation of products and everything, they have to be more localized, and not just made in India. I think everywhere this movement is going on. And the second part is that, do you really want to trust on something which is not being trained on the data which is of the local population? I don't think you can do that, right? So that is a very important other aspect why it has to be done it in India. The other aspect, of course, which was touched, was a cost part of it, right? So typically devices are made, right, mostly in the West or Japan or Korea, right? There, the kind of spends which are there per capita is almost 40 times that we do over here in India, right? So if we are importing devices which are made for that and implementing it over here, right, obviously the cost structures are not going to be correct, right? It has to be done here. If we had launched a rocket from NASA, of course our budgets would needed to be, you know, 10 times more. But we did it in 650 crores now over here in India. So it has to be done. I think we don't have a choice. And we have done UPI, right? As in the scale of it, which is there in India, I don't think anywhere else in the world that sees that also. The devices are not made for such scales. We are talking about catering to this kind of a population. India can actually become leader, not just for India. Make in India for India is one, but when we actually make it in India, right, with the kind of diversity, biodiversity that we have over here, right, we can actually make in India for the world is a real possibility. And with Dozee, we are going to ensure that that is we are going to be the flag bearers of this for sure. Right? So I'm very excited about this very new recent development. At least directionally and notionally, it gives us support that we are doing it something which is in the right direction, right? And what will happen, only time will tell. But I think it's a very exciting move.
Right. So I think it is a very unilateral, mutual decision here that yes, make in India and bringing medical device manufacturing to India is going to change a lot of landscape, as Ma'am said and Dr. Uthappa mentioned as well. So yeah, thank you. Moving on towards the end of this webinar, this is going to be the last point of discussion. I'd like each of you, your participants, to give a message to the fellow healthcare community. Any final thoughts and advices regarding AI implementation in healthcare, and any key takeaways that you'd like to emphasize on. We'll start with Dr. Uthappa, please.
Thank you, Nishant, for that. So, what I can say is, as I've been saying right from the beginning, embrace digitization, especially electronic medical records. It's the only way forward. It assures quality, patient safety, efficiency, and of course, it saves trees. Very important, the last part. So, again, as I mentioned earlier on, AI is here to stay. AI won't replace doctors, but doctors who use AI will replace those who don't.
Correct.
That's my final say.
Yes. On to you, Mitali ma'am. How much do you agree with Dr. Uthappa and your opinions as well, please?
So digitization is definitely the future. I mean, no second thoughts about it.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to see when do we achieve that stage. It's a journey. All of us are going through it, and hopefully we'll reach there somewhere. I would emphasize on one aspect: as we digitize more, there is also a risk in terms of data security and privacy. So that's something we should all watch out for. And once this data protection bill comes in, it will become more important. So as you collect more and more data and use it, also be very aware of the data protection, the data privacy, how you're storing it, how you're accessing it, all of that. Very, very important going forward,
Mhm.
especially. And when it comes to AI implementation, probably start small with very clear objectives, and then go further depending on, get some quick wins, and that probably will help you sell it across the different stakeholders.
Very, very rightfully said. I think taking baby steps and then building towards what's really required, and I think prioritizing the different sections of it. Mr. Mudit, on to you. I mean, parting message for everyone, all our fellow healthcare community, and your takeaways on our session on AI, please.
Lots of takeaways. I think if I start speaking, the time will be very short, right? I learned a lot from Dr. Uthappa, Mitali ma'am on what are the barriers, and what is the at the end of it, finally, yes, barriers are there, but also there is an outlook that it is there. All it takes is finally for us to come together and solve it. So I think what is very important is the collaboration piece of it, between healthcare, between administrators, between regulators and innovators. I think when all of these pieces will come together, and I think we have all of this, albeit in silos, but they are there. That's a good sign. Even if we can pick up some use cases and implement it, because that is what it is going to take. Finally, it is never going to happen that from one day we have switched AI mode. That is not going to happen, right? It is the steps that we have to take together towards that. And finally, I think the purpose is to make healthcare more available, accessible, affordable, so that it reaches
And,
everyone, and that
and
is
safe.
and safe. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
Absolutely correct.
So, any final comments from anyone before we just thank you all, and yeah, anything that anyone would like to add to the last segment of our discussion, please.
Uh, I think there's quite a lot to add, but we're short of time. I would like to say it was a fantastic time. I had a lovely time here listening to Mitali, and Mudit is very passionate about what he's doing.
Interesting discussion. It gives a nice feeling when you know that everybody is going through the same challenge. You are
Going
not
through the
alone.
same challenge,
Right.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, so if we can
very
spare
good.
maybe a minute more, we have a question from one of our audience which says, "Does AI disrupt the usual workflow?" So whoever wants to put ahead their answer to this, please. Yeah, please, Mudit.
So disrupt is a slightly negative connotation to it, right? So I want to
Hmm.
answer it in a right way.
Hmm.
Uh, if it disrupt in that way that it is a problematic area, then obviously that is a wrong design of the implementation. But yes, it can bring disproportionate amount of efficiencies into the system, right? So probably what we are doing, it can help us to do things better. At least that is what my learning is. It doesn't flip over its head that so far you're doing it like this, now it is going to happen like that. I don't think it happens like that.
So I think there is no switch there. Like Mitali ma'am said, there needs to be baby steps of adoption. There needs to be baby steps of implementation, and then we'll have a night which after which we can say AI has been completely implemented. Another question from one of our audience, like how are you guys addressing the concerns about patient privacy and data security? So I think this is directed towards Mudit.
I think
So
Ma'am wants to go first, so maybe I
yeah,
I
can
please,
think
take up.
please,
let me tell.
Mitali. Yeah.
Data privacy and security, as I was also saying, it's very,
Hmm.
very critical now, and you can never say I am 100% secure in spite of whatever you do. I don't think anybody will come up say I have done enough and I am 100% secure. So it's a constant thing, and there are multiple levels to it. So how you store, you have to make sure, and security at each level. At the storage level, at the accessing level, at your network, at your application, the way the data is transmitted. So at every level you have to, so technology of course plays a big part there, and you do your bit on the technology side. But I think the biggest hindrance in data privacy and security, based on my experience, is the user awareness part of it. I think that's where we lack more. So, as I always say, technology is the easier puzzle to solve. I can put in a lot of technology to safeguard my data, but then when I find out my entire hospital runs on WhatsApp, everything is urgent. You share everything on WhatsApp. That's where I think a lot of focus is needed. So, as an awareness across the industry, you know, across all the stakeholders, clinicians, nurses, people are not aware that how important it is, how critical it is, and what big impact it can have if it is breached. So I think that bit probably is a bigger concern, I feel, rather than the technology part of it, which needs more focus. And I think a lot of collaboration needed, a lot of initiatives from the governments also needed in this regard to make people more aware.
Right.
So
Additions from the rest of the panelists, please. Yes.
yeah, so sorry, sir, you want to go first?
Dr. Uthappa,
No, no,
please.
I think Mitali, the Chief Information Officer, covered everything.
So I'll address.
I can't argue with that.
No, so true. I'll address probably more from Dozee standpoint how we are also implementing this as well, right? Because it is at the end of it data which is coming and all of that. So there are certain protocols also which are there along with the part and how they are being addressed. So data at storage, data at motion, how these are handled, how authentications happen, and so on, right? That is all it covers into data security and privacy part of it. So ISO 27001 is a standard, which is a global standard in terms of data security privacy. So we are compliant to that, right? One of the that means that no one without a proper authentication cannot access the information that they don't require, right? And that is not just for basically. So users also are part of that. In fact, so that doesn't allow you taking a screenshot, sharing it on any other platform and so on also, right? So all those also get impacted in that. Similarly, given that Dozee has a global aspiration, right? So we are following all the protocols which are like HIPAA, GDPR compliant as well. So, and recently India also rolled out its data security and privacy policy as well, right? So we are ensuring that we are compliant to all the policies which are there. Finally, at the end of it, right, one example I have to give is like how banks, right? Earlier banks used to be go to ATM, put your pin and do that, right? Right now we are managing all of that on the phone, right? All the information is there, but still we are secure because there are certain protocols which are followed. So banks follow something, and similarly same protocols apply to every system which is taking such kind of serious data and personal data as well.
All right. I think that answers the question from our viewers very, very promptly. So I think with this, I'd like to end this panel of discussion. I'd like to thank all our panelists, Mitali ma'am, Mudit, Dr. Uthappa. Thank you all for joining us. And obviously, this has been a very wonderful educational session for myself as well. Uh, so I thank you all and thank you all for sharing your valuable insights.
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you, VOH, for bringing us all together. I certainly learned quite a lot from the other two.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
You have a good evening, all of you.